Yo soy Anthony Gallippi, estoy una cofundadora de BitPay. Mi español es un poco oxidado, so if I would prefer to speak in English. BitPay was founded in 2011. We currently have 38 employees around the world. Our headquarters are in Atlanta. We have a sales team in San Francisco. We have a European office in Amsterdam that handles everything customer-facing for our clients there. And then we actually have two offices in Latin America, both in Argentina. We have a development team in Tucumán, and then we have our sales center in Buenos Aires. To date, we've raised over $30 million in venture capital from some investors that you may know. Index Ventures is out of London. Founders Fund is Silicon Valley. That's Peter Thiel, one of the founders of PayPal, and a few others. We focus on Bitcoin payments, which is a very specific service, which is different from some of the other abstract ideas related to blockchain that we've heard about today. But we're doing a very specific service, and we have some name brand clients working with us. We have a partnership with Visa that I will talk about. Microsoft works with us to accept Bitcoin for their Xbox platform. Intel, we have a partnership with that I will talk about as well. Steam is a big marketplace for video games. And then we have a few others. But since we've been in business for 5 years, we've been running live payments for people for some time. We have a lot of trust from some of these companies. They confide in us to manage their Bitcoin operations. So what do we do for Bitcoin payments? There's really 3 different services. First, acceptance. We can help a company accept Bitcoin as a form of payment, and then we can settle that to their bank. So the company never actually touches Bitcoin or takes possession of it. We, as their payment gateway and payment processor, handles that for them. The other service is the opposite. This is to send payments out. A company that needs to send a large batch of payments, especially to emerging markets, we can do that efficiently with Bitcoin. We interact with our business customer through their bank account. They pay us in dollars or pay us in euros, and we handle and manage the sending of Bitcoins. And we also have a digital wallet. This allows an individual user, whether they are a person or a company, to manage their digital assets, which at this point is mostly Bitcoin. I'd like to do a demonstration of a Bitcoin payment because for those of you that have never seen it before, it works very different from a bank payment or a payment with a card. So in this example, we're going to donate money to charity. If I were to donate with my bank card, I would have to fill out a long form with my address and give them my card number. They don't need to ship me anything in the mail, so they really don't need my address other than to authenticate that I'm the right person for the card. So this payment is actually much simpler when we use Bitcoin. The only thing they ask me for is my email address, so they can add me to their mailing list, I assume. Let's see, how do I... There we go. Tony@bitpay.com. I can choose the amount in a number of currencies. Let's say I want to donate $1. When I push the button, BitPay is going to provide a service now to this charity where we're going to present the instructions to the donor. A Bitcoin payment is a push transaction. The user with Bitcoin has to push it, much like they push to send an email or a text message. I cannot pull Bitcoins from them. So for the $1, given the current exchange rate, there's a specific amount of Bitcoins that this screen is expecting to receive. So there's 3 main items on this screen. Let me see if I can zoom in. Can you see that? So the $1 payment translates right now at the market rate for Bitcoin to 0.001333 Bitcoins. There's also a unique Bitcoin address that the user needs to send the payment to. Every invoice that we process, every payment request, gets a unique Bitcoin address. And BitPay, as a service provider, is listening to the Bitcoin network, and we're waiting for payments to land in those addresses. We have to make a unique address for each payment because when they land, we need to identify which merchant it's for and which specific order it's for. There's also a timer on the invoice. This checkout window that we've created, we've guaranteed this exchange rate for 15 minutes. So if a user is buying a television online or making some other type of payment online, they have a window at which, if they send this amount of Bitcoins, we will guarantee the rate and we will guarantee that the business receives $1. So to pay this, I can go to a Bitcoin wallet on my phone. This BitPay invoice is compatible with all Bitcoin wallets. Most of them are able to scan the code and interpret the information. So in that QR code is the address, it is the amount, also the expiration time, and it also has a secure signature from BitPay. So when you scan it, you know that you're receiving a code from BitPay. If you have a Bitcoin wallet, you can try to scan that. Let me move this down. Oh, no, I can't. Try that. Sometimes you need to be straight on. So I'm going to try to scan it from my phone. I activate the camera. All right, mine picked it up. It brings in the amount, and it brings in the address, and then I actually have several different wallets on this phone. It prompts me which wallet I want to pay from. I'm going to pick this one, and then to complete the payment, our app asks you to slide the screen with your thumb. On this particular wallet, we also use the fingerprint for authentication, so nothing will be sent until I give it my fingerprint. So my wallet broadcast the transaction to the Bitcoin network, which is the public network. BitPay's payment gateway was listening for it. It received it. It matched it up. It identified which merchant it was for, which specific order of that merchant it was for. It was expecting a certain amount. It received that amount, so it marked that order as paid. For the user, it updated the screen to show that their payment was received. So all of this functionality can occur in a user interface. It can also occur over our API. This is typically how merchants interface with us. They can accept Bitcoin without ever having to deal with the underlying addresses, the currency conversion, or really anything related to Bitcoin directly. We can manage all of that for them. So where we see Bitcoin being used is for international payments. It is much faster and much cheaper to use Bitcoin than to try to use some of the traditional banking systems. Sending $100 from the US to Colombia or Colombia to the US could involve a rather complicated relationship. This diagram here, the red dot is the sending person, the other red dot is the receiving person. I cannot send money from myself to my father. I have to ask my bank to do it for me. My bank may not have a direct relationship with my father's bank. There may be one or more banks in between. So every one of these banks adds a cost to the transaction. It adds an extra time to the transaction, and it could add risk that something could go wrong. When businesses use our platform, they find a lot of utility in using Bitcoin for their international payments. We've worked with some franchises. A specific one would be a hamburger franchise in the United States. That is the corporate headquarters. They have local franchise owners in many countries. As part of the licensing agreement to own a hamburger franchise, you have to pay every month a portion of your sales back to the brand. In some countries, this is easy. In other countries, it's not so easy. So we've worked with some of those to be able to move money. Import and export companies also find value in using Bitcoin for international payments. Service firms, law firms, accounting firms with international clients, it does not hurt for them to say, we accept Bitcoin. Sometimes their customers will want to pay this way. It's usually more convenient for them and faster. When we look at our business customers, they represent about 10% of our transaction volume last year. 90% of our payments are still consumer payments. But the average price of a business transaction for us is 25 times as much as a consumer transaction. So we like these customers. We find that they are very willing to use our service, and many times we save them money. The other service we provide, I mentioned it at the beginning, is payouts or disbursements in Bitcoin. A good example of this is an app store. Apple has an app store, and many developers from all over the world can submit apps to the app store. If it's a paid app, Apple does the billing and charges the buyer. But then every week, Apple has to pay out a revenue share to those developers for how much their apps have sold. So Apple uses a platform from a major bank for this today, and it's very easy to give the bank a batch of payments in the United States, give the bank a batch of payments for the Eurozone, but for the rest of the world, it's not so easy. It's a lot of one-off manual payments. These app stores, they pay their developers relatively small amounts. Most app developers make $50 a week, $100 per week, $200 per week. It's not very cost effective to do a bank wire for such a small amount, especially when you do it on a regular basis. So we found some of these marketplaces that also have app stores, especially in the gaming space, start to look at Bitcoin. Because with a developer, you have a technical person, and they're technically enough to be able to understand Bitcoin. When they receive their payment, they actually get paid more by using Bitcoin, because many times the app store or the bank will deduct a fee for them to actually receive their revenue. So this is popular for internet marketplaces, app stores, and some other areas where you have a user base that is geographically distributed around the world. You're doing relatively small amounts, and you're doing them very frequently. We also do some work with Bitcoin in the remittance market. And our first entry into this is using Bitcoin as a deposit method into a stored value account that I have. These are three names that we work with today where a user could have an e-wallet or some type of digital stored value that's held at a financial institution. PayPal would also be a similar example of a e-wallet. If I want to deposit funds into my NetTeller account, that's what this screenshot shows. I can make a deposit into NetTeller using my Visa, using my MasterCard. It's going to be expensive, but I can do it. There's also some local payment methods depending on what country I'm in. And then there's Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the cheapest and lowest cost options for me to deposit money into my e-wallet. It's cheap because BitPay makes it cheap for NetTeller. So if I'm a regular user of this service, I'm going to naturally want to find the cheapest, most efficient way for me to get payments into this service. So that's how this works. What you've done, essentially, when you've enabled Bitcoin as a deposit option is you've allowed anyone in the world to send you money. And you could immediately convert it into something that you use every day. So if I have a NetTeller account and my sister owes me money, wherever she is in the world, she can send me Bitcoin, and I can log into my NetTeller account and use those Bitcoin to increase my NetTeller balance. There are no Bitcoins in NetTeller. It's a dollar account or a euro account, but I'm using Bitcoin as a deposit method. Why would NetTeller and Skrill and others want to use Bitcoin as a deposit method? Well, it's relatively affordable, but it also has very low fraud. Remember, Bitcoin is a push transaction, so there's no such thing as a insufficient funds or a reversal or a chargeback. When you accept a deposit in Bitcoin, once you receive it, it's yours. It cannot be reversed or taken away from you. So that allows BitPay as a service provider to provide a very good guarantee to these merchants and to offer payment acceptance at a low price. The video game industry is one where Bitcoin adoption has really succeeded in its early days. With video games, you have a demographic of users who are typically younger, tech-savvy, and male. The same kind of people who use Bitcoin. So for buying video games, for adding money into your video game account to buy items within the game, or even some game makers have started accepting Bitcoin payments within the game. Microsoft and Steam we mentioned before. G2A is a marketplace where people trade in-game items. So if you're playing a game and you can obtain a unique item, a sword, a skin, some other weapon, these have value where you could potentially trade them to other users. So what happens when you have a kid in Argentina who has a sword he wants to sell to another kid in France for $2 or $3? Bitcoin really is the only way to effectively manage that transaction. This chart is a monthly chart of the transaction volume that we have been processing for our merchants. And we started tracking this in 2013. We actually tracked it earlier, but it would look the same. So in 2013, we were doing approximately 2,000 transactions in 1 month. Here we are, almost 4 years later, we're doing over 180,000 transactions a month, or over 6,000 per day. So businesses are starting to use the platform. We're moving real money for real people, Our average transaction is between $100 and $200. So many of these are still relatively small purchases, but people are using it, and they're using it predominantly for international payments. Earlier, yeah, Satoshi's on our slide. Earlier this year, we also announced our partnership with Visa. We have a prepaid card. I have one. Mine has my name on it and not Satoshi. This is a standard prepaid card. It is issued by a bank, and the bank is a member of the Visa network. BitPay serves two functions for this program. Number one, we are the marketing brand, much like an airline that wants to enroll customers, and we earn a share of the interchange revenue that those customers earn for Visa. But through the relationship with our bank, BitPay is also a top-up mechanism. So similar to how we top up a NetTeller account with Bitcoin, I can top up my own prepaid card using Bitcoin. Again, there are no Bitcoins on the card. The bank never touches Bitcoin. The bank is using BitPay as a processor to let the user pay with Bitcoin, and then BitPay delivers dollars to the bank. So you can easily convert Bitcoin into dollars, then you can then spend it anywhere Visa is accepted. I've been using this in Cartagena all week. It works great. I can also go to the ATM, and I just tried this in the lobby across the hall, and I got a nice stack of pesos. So that works too. So you can convert Bitcoin into cash and really make every ATM into a Bitcoin ATM. The third product that I mentioned on the slide is our wallet platform. We started building this about 3 years ago, and it's an open source wallet platform. The brand we started with was Copay. We wanted to keep it separate from the BitPay brand because we wanted it to be its own open source project and open source community. This was developed in Argentina. The Copay app has been translated into 10 languages. It's available in all of the app stores. And so far, we have over 200,000 wallets that we've created using the platform. The wallet itself is an open source app that manages your Bitcoin addresses and your keys. The wallet app actually connects to an oracle in the cloud that monitors the Bitcoin network and the blockchain, because I don't need to download the entire Bitcoin blockchain onto my phone. I just want my phone to point to a trusted source for that data. So we created BitCore, which is the infrastructure behind the wallet that you can use ours or you can download it and run your own. So you could take our app, offer a Bitcoin wallet to your employees. On the back end, you can run the infrastructure and your employees can point their app to your infrastructure, and then you are completely running disconnected from BitPay. You're hosting all of the infrastructure yourself. So what BitCore does, it can let you operate your own wallet server for the wallets that are connected to it. You can also operate your own block explorer. A block explorer is just a way to look at transactions and search them on the Bitcoin network. You can now do this yourself with open source tools from BitPay. Earlier, I guess about 1 month ago, we also announced our partnership with Intel. Intel has some technology in their microprocessors that's a secure zone. A secure zone that is protected in memory from the remainder of the operating system. So that if you get a virus on your computer, you want items in that secure zone to not be accessible by a virus or malware. So BitPay worked with Intel. They developed an API for us. We integrated to it. And we are the one and only Bitcoin wallet that integrates with this secure zone. So how does that work? Well, in that secure zone, you generate the Bitcoin private keys. Those keys never leave that secure zone, not even to the memory of the operating system. That secure zone has a secure channel to the display. So you can interact with it in a way that your graphics card, and again, your memory cannot see what you're doing. So it generates the keys. When you want to create a transaction, your app can be aware of the Bitcoin addresses that you have, but it can't sign the transaction because it doesn't have the keys. So your application in the operating system will create the transaction that is not signed. It will pass it down to the secure zone. The secure zone will sign it and pass it back to you, and then you can broadcast it. So it's like having a hardware secure wallet embedded in the computer that you already have, if it's powered by Intel. The interesting thing about this is that Intel has about 400 million computers that they've already shipped that have this capability. They've had it for a while now. What they have not had are applications that actually make use of this secure zone. So storing a credit card token, storing a Bitcoin private key, these are the types of things that Intel wants to see used with their technology. Recently, we've introduced the BitPay app. The BitPay app takes everything that we've built from our CoPay wallet, as well as an interface to manage my activity of my debit card and a few other things, and puts it in one app. This BitPay app is also open source. It lets you do more than just send and receive Bitcoin. It has an interface where, again, I can see the balance of my debit card. I can see my transaction history on my card. I can top it up and add value to it from within the app. We've also integrated with Amazon, so if I have Bitcoin, I can buy an Amazon gift card directly within the app. You can buy the card for the exact penny of your shopping cart and pay for your order in full at Amazon using Bitcoin. That's kind of nice. We also integrated with a few exchanges, so you can buy Bitcoin from the exchange and have it delivered to your wallet. You can also sell Bitcoin from your wallet and through the exchange and have those funds delivered to your bank account. There's a bit of a difference when you look at the different types of Bitcoin wallets. A Bitcoin transaction needs the private key to be able to sign and prove ownership and prove transfer of this digital asset. The original wallet from the Bitcoin creator, as well as most of them, let the user store their private keys on their own device. That's the most secure. So for someone to steal my Bitcoins, they would need to get physical access to my device. They would then need to get through all of my passwords and possibly clone my thumb to get my money. There are other Bitcoin wallets that act like a Bitcoin bank, where all of their users, potentially 1 million users, give all of their Bitcoins to this company. The company holds them and essentially just gives you a balance and an IOU that you can manage from your app, similar to your online banking that you have today. You deposit your money into a bank account, and then they give you an app that shows you what you have. If you ever want to spend from that balance, you need to ask the bank, please send the money. With the way we've architected our wallet, you have the keys, so you can send the money yourself. You don't need to ask someone else to do it for you. So it allows the user to have total control over their funds. They can choose whatever device they want to use. They can even use multiple devices and require more than one device to sign a transaction. In the app, we also added some educational screens to teach new users a little bit about Bitcoin, as much as you can in an app anyway. There's a few screens, teaches them about how they can secure their key on the device, how they can back it up, and if they lose it, how they can restore it. So if you want to take a look at the BitPay app, it's available in the iTunes App Store and the Google Play Store. So that's all I have. Muchas gracias.